sports fans? It's your boy, the sports reporter without pay, coming at you with an NBA season recap. As always, if you have not done so already, go ahead and subscribe to this page, hit that notification bell so you can be up to date when I drop any new content. Without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. We're going to start off with a few players and teams that surprised the sports reporter without pay. On the team side, let's start with the Los Angeles Clippers and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Two teams, neither of which they made the playoffs because they lost in the play-in. But in any other year, both these teams would have been 7 and 8 seeds in their conference, and they would have been in the playoffs. The Cleveland Cavaliers coming to the season, no major expectations. Bernie Bickerstaff did an outstanding job with this crew. They lose Colin Sexton early in the season, but Jared Allen was great on defense. Evan Mobley might win Rookie of the Year. He was great on both sides of the ball. Darius Garland carrying the offense. And again, in any other year, they would have been in the playoff. But with the new format, they lose in the play-in. But it's still a great season for them, and it looks like they're moving in the right direction. On the other side, we got the Los Angeles Clippers. Again, a team that in other years would have been in the playoffs. Not a great accomplishment for that team. But when you think about the fact that they went all year with no Kawhi Leonard, and PG played less than half the season, this team shouldn't have been in the position they were in. Same thing. Ty Lue had these guys playing hard. They have a plethora of wings. Man was great this year. Powell was great this year. Batum, Morris, the whole crew. Again, they fell just short of making the playoffs, but I think both those teams have a lot to be proud of with the way they played this year. Two other teams who on the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm looking at the New Orleans Pelicans. I'm looking at the Boston Celtics. New Orleans Pelicans start the season 1-12. They could have thrown in the towel. They could have just called it a wash of a season. No Zion all year. But what do? They make a few moves. They go pick up CJ McCollum at the trade deadline. Him and Brandon Ingram playing hard the second half of the season. And lo and behold, this team is in the playoffs as we sit right now. And then in the Eastern Conference, you look at the Boston Celtics. First, third, fourth of the season, people were talking about it's not going to work, break it up, Tatum and Brown isn't the future. And they just turned it on and hit a whole nother gear the second half of the season. That defense was top notch. Tatum is a flat out stud. You know, had them boys buying in. Shout out to the Boston Celtics for turning that season around. But the team that surprised me the most was the Memphis Grizzlies. Again, solid team last year, 8 seed. They sneak in the playoffs with the play-in last year. But then they come out this year and they just elevated. They hit a whole nother gear. Taylor Jenkins had these boys absolutely balling. And the most impressive thing about the Memphis Grizzlies was they was like 20-2 without Ja Morant. And Ja Morant is a flat-out stud. This is not a shot at him. This is an indictment on him. But that team played extremely well when their star wasn't on the floor. Jaren Jackson leading the league in blocks. Desmond Bane improving, one of the coldest shooters, coldest scorers in the game. Dylan Brooks. Team just solid all the way around. I didn't see this coming from Memphis Grizzlies. Here they are, the second seed in the Western Conference. Big ups to them. As for players who surprised me, there were so many to pick from. I think the most improved player race was the closest we've ever seen. But the guys who really surprised me this year, Jordan Poole was one. Hit a whole nother level. Filled in outstanding for Klay with him out. And then when Klay came back, he still found his way to be extremely productive with Klay on the floor. Miles Bridges was outstanding this year. Desmond Bane, as I spoke on already, was outstanding. But the guy who surprised me the most, who I think went from a very good player to a potential perennial star in this league, was DeJounte Murray, guy who led the league in steals, was getting you 20 points per game, putting up those Westbrook and Luka Doncic type numbers, where he can go out and get a triple-double on any given night, putting up about 29 and 8 every single night and leading the league in steals. San Antonio just may have found their new piece for the future. On the flip side, let's look at a few disappointments. Let's start with the New York Knicks and the Portland Trail Blazers. The Trail Blazers, the team who've been perennial playoff contenders each and every year. If you go back 5 or 6 years ago when they had the squad with Dame Lillard, Wes Matthews, Nick Batum, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Lopez, and then all of those guys left and it was just Dame, they still found themselves in the playoffs. Year after year, 3 seed, 4 seed, 5, like Portland was in the playoffs, even made a Western Conference Finals one year. So we've grown to expect those guys to at least be in the mix. And this year just wasn't that for them. Dame had an injury. I don't know if he checked out on the team. I don't know what the deal was. CJ gets traded. Looks like they're going to blow it up and start over from scratch. Don't know what's going on in Portland, but did not expect this bad of a season from him. Then New York Knicks, a team that made the playoffs last year, looked like they were trending in the right direction. Randall Wynn's most improved player. They lock him in. Same team come back this year, and they just weren't very good. I don't even know what to pinpoint. I don't know what to look at and say they could have or should have done differently or better, but I at least expected them to maintain what they had built on last year and possibly be a playoff team. They weren't even in contention for the play-in. So this is a step in the wrong direction for New York. Hopefully they can get things back on track. Everybody could see this coming a mile away. The collision course that was never. Like, beginning of the season, everybody's expecting Nets, Lakers on their way to the finals. They all made these off-season acquisitions. The Nets got their big three supposedly healthy coming back. Aldridge comes back. They go pick up Patty Mills. You get the Lakers. They just pick up everybody in off-season. They get Russell Westbrook. Melo comes in. They bring Dwight Howard back. Kendrick Nunn, who didn't play all year. Trevor Ariza. Like, both these teams built these crazy teams in the off-season only to get to the end of the year, and the Lakers don't even make the play-in, and the Brooklyn Nets needed the play-in to get into the playoffs. Very disappointing for both of these teams. At least Brooklyn still has a chance. They're in the playoffs, and once you're in, at least you got a chance. But neither one of these teams lived up to the expectations that we as fans had for them coming into the year. Very disappointing, to say the least. As for players that disappointed me, I have to go with Ben Simmons and Zion Williamson. And there are a lot of players that didn't play this year due to injury, which we're going to get to shortly. But Zion Williamson, I don't know, like, what the deal is. Like, you're now, three years into the league, and you're spending more time off the court than you are on. It's not a good look. You're starting to get that Greg Oden kind of feel. Hopefully he can right it. When the kid is on the court, he is phenomenal. But at this point, the best ability is availability, and this guy is never available, and that's just not a very good thing. And again, New Orleans Pelicans are in the playoffs right now. They could really use Zion Williamson on the floor, and he's nowhere to be found. Same thing with Ben Simmons. His team could use him right now. Hasn't played a game all year because his feelings hurt. Never heard of nothing like this in my life. Man ain't played no basketball all year because his feelings hurt. Gets to his new team, you want it out, get to a new team, and you're injured. How somebody get injured that ain't played all year? Very disappointing. Which brings me to my last point. The overall disappointment for me was injuries this year. We did not see Kawhi Leonard all year. We didn't see Jamal Murray all year. We already spoke on Ben Simmons. We already spoke on Zion Williamson. Paul George missed half the season. AD missed half the season. Bradley Beal missed half the season. Dame Lillard missed half the season. Just was not a very good year for the stars, the guys we want to see play, the guy we turn on our TV and tune in to watch these guys be great and do what they do. We missed a lot of them this year due to injury, not to even mention COVID protocols. Just a very weird season. Hopefully next year a lot of those guys can suit back up and get on the floor so we can see them do what they do best. And we're going to close out with the Sports Reporters Without Pay, all NBA and all defensive teams. Of note, people, the All-Star selections and the All-NBA selections are not the same. For the All-Star team, they got rid of the center position, so there are 2 guards and there are 3 front court players. That means forwards, centers are all the same on the All-Star team. It's quite different with All-NBA. They still have the center position. And from what I hear, they made it this year where Jokic and Embiid qualified as both. Sports Reporter I play, we ain't playing them kind of games. One of them dudes just going to have to be second team. So let's jump right into it. My All-NBA first team at the center position, we're going with Joel Embiid. Heck of a year, played most of the year without his number 2 guy, who again wasn't playing because his feelings was hurt. James Harden comes over and you think, hey, maybe this guy's going to kind of dial it back. No, he just played like an MVP caliber player all year, wins the scoring title, first center since Shaq. Hell of a year for Joel Embiid. He's my All-NBA first-team center. At the forward spot, we're going to go with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Had another MVP caliber season. He flat out balled all year, both sides of the ball. He's getting to the point where this guy, again, he makes 30, 12, and 6 look normal, and it's not normal. Giannis Antetokounmpo is an athletic freak. He's this guy's just phenomenal, and he's doing it year in, year out. Again, it's going to get to the point we're going to start taking his greatness for granted. My second forward spot, we're going to go with Jason Tatum. Like I said about the Boston Celtics, started the season off kind of slow, but then they turned it on. And here they are in the playoffs as the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. And Tatum flat out balled all year. He showed that he has that it factor. When times get tough, when you need a bucket, when you need a run stopper, Tatum is that guy. And he was playing both sides of the ball. He was locked in on defense this year. I'm going with Tatum in my second forward spot. At those 2 guard spots, we're going to go with Luka Doncic, a guy who just flew under the radar all year, kind of like I said about Greek, to the point where now he puts up 29, 9, and 9, and it just looks normal. That is not normal for a guy that put up 29 points per game, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists regularly. year in, year out. And then Dallas kind of made a run. They almost got into that 3 seed. They kind of got locked up towards the end. 4 seed, Luka Doncic, my first guard. Second guard on the first team, we got to get Devin Booker some love, man. Listen, ever since Chris Paul came over to Phoenix, he's gotten all the praise. He's gotten all the credit and the adulation for the team's success. But a funny thing happened. Chris Paul went out for an extended period this year, and the Phoenix Suns did not miss a beat. Devin Booker showed he can get it done. He showed he can lead that team to some wins. He can be that guy in the clutch when they need a bucket, when they need a run stop, when they need somebody to have a big game. Devin Booker was all of that. Got a little MVP buzz. I didn't quite have him in my ballot, but as for all NBA first team, he absolutely deserves it. All NBA second team, the center spot is a no-brainer. Listen, I got no heartburn who you had first and second. I went with Embiid first. That makes Joker the no-brainer for the second team. MVP year last year. He came back even better this year, right? All-time single-season record in PER, 13 boards a game, 28 points, 8 assists, whatever. Like, it's unreal what Joker's doing. Like, he's putting up video game numbers regularly. Right? And again, he's just making it look normal. Another guy that I think people are going to start to take his greatness for granted. What he's doing isn't a normal thing, but he makes my All-NBA second team. At those 4 spots, we're going to start off with Kevin Durant. Injury probably cost him being on the first team and losing his MVP status that he had early in the year. But when he was on the court, when he did play, he was Kevin Durant. He was going to give you his 28 points per game on an crazy efficiency, right? KD was flat out balling when he was on the court this year. Again, injury probably cost him being All-NBA first team. My other 4 spot, we going with DeMar DeRozan. I hate the fact that he made the All-Star team as a guard because he's been playing small forward for the Chicago Bulls all year. Listen, middle of the year, DeMar DeRozan hit a stretch where he just was flat out balling. He had that crazy streak of 35 points at 50%, and he was hitting game winners, and he was clutching the fourth quarter, and the Bulls were the 2 seed. He was getting MVP love. And then at the end of the year, the Bulls kind of tapered off. DeMar DeRozan kind of lost a little bit of the hype that was around him. But if we talk on the totality of the season, he's absolutely deserving to be on the All-NBA second team. At those guard spots, 2 guys who probably were first team early in the year had some MVP buzz, but then injuries cost them a lot of time. We're going to go with Ja Morant and Steph Curry, the 2 teams that finished 2 and 3 in the West, well over 50 wins. Both those guys was leading their teams. Both those guys were phenomenal when they were on the court. But again, injuries cost them some time. But no harm in being All-NBA second team. On the All-NBA third team, again, the center spot was a no-brainer. Karl-Anthony Towns had another brilliant statistical season, but this year he had some team success to go with it. Minnesota won 46 games, got in the play-in, won there. Now they're in the playoffs, and as the making of this video, have won Game 1 against the Memphis Grizzlies. Again, Towns had another great year. 4th year going 50% from the field, 40% from 3, 25 points, 9 boards. Towns, no-brainer as the center spot. Those 2 forward spots, slim pickings, but we're going to go with Jimmy Butler. Like, you got to give him credit. The Miami Heat battled injuries all year. Jimmy did what Jimmy does, his 21-6-6. And the Miami Heat had the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. My only issue with Jimmy is early in his career, he was at least a formidable, like, okay 3-point shooter. And he can't hit the broadside of a barn now. He shot like 23% from 3. Hopefully he can get that together, but I looked, and it's been like 3 years in a row where he's just lost his shot. Don't know what the problem is, but still he got it done on both sides of the ball, playing hard, the heart and soul of that team. And again, Miami Heat was number 1 seed in the East. My last forward spot, and people are going to lose their mind, that it is not LeBron James. Yes, he averaged 30. Yes, he had a great statistical year, but I cannot find it to put him on All-NBA when the Lakers were as atrocious as they were. Just can't do it. So we're going to go with Pascal Siakam, a guy who put up 23, 9, and 5 on 49% shooting and had the Toronto Raptors, again, another one of those teams that didn't have no real high expectations, and here they are in the playoffs. So that wraps up my All-NBA forward spots. Last 2 guard spots, we're going to go with Trae Young, man. Listen, this guy, I give him a lot of flack for some of those bad shooting nights he had, but the guy's legit, man. Guy going to go out and put up 28, 29 a game. He going to get you 9, 10 assists a game. I think this year he led the league in total points and total assists. Only knock on him was, looked like Atlanta kind of digressed this year. They were in the 5 seed and made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and they had to have the play-in just to get into the playoffs this year. But Trae was phenomenal all year, well-deserving on being in the All-NBA. And third team, other guard spot, we going to go with Donovan Mitchell, a guy who just gets overlooked all the time. Utah Jazz are Groundhog Day. They going to go out every year. They going to play defense. They going to play hard. Gobert's going to anchor the defense. Mitchell's going to run the offense. He going to get his 25, 5, and 5. They're going to win 50 games and probably lose in the first or second round. But that's not an easy thing to just go out every year and put up 24, 25 points per game, win 50 games, and people just overlook you. Donovan Mitchell deserves the little bit of love that I'm giving him right now. I'm putting him on my third team All-NBA, and that wraps up all three teams. All defense is always tough to pick because people normally make these based on reputation. Like you ask the average person, they'll say Rudy Gobert. Not this time. The sports reporter that I paid did his due diligence. Going to try and give y'all the people who are really deserving to be all defense. On that first team at the center spot, we are going with Robert Williams. This kid is special on that side of the ball. He anchored the best defense in the NBA the second half. That was the key to the Boston Celtics turnaround. Not the offense. Tatum did his thing. Brown did his thing. But on that defensive side with him, and we're going to get to the other guy later, they were special. At those forward spots, we're going to go with Jaren Jackson, who led the league in blocks. And again, Memphis was very good. Very, very good when their star player wasn't in the lineup. And a huge part of that was defense, which was anchored by Jaren Jackson. Again, led the league in blocks. Solid, deserving to be on the first team. At that other forward spot, we're going with Mikal Bridges. This kid is flat out special. You have to watch him play. When you have that responsibility to go out every night and guard the other team's best wing player, he goes out, he does it, and he's solid on offense. But for right now, we're talking about defense. A guy who's in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, well deserving. First team guard spots, Patrick Beverley, a guy who doesn't get enough credit. People always saying he's a pest, he's a nuisance. Hey, that stuff matters. This is the kind of guy you want on your team. Pat Beverley is the guy that, like, if you're playing against him, you hate him. If you're playing with him, you love him. And like he said, when he went to Minnesota, he said they was going to get to the playoffs, and nobody believed him. People dogged him for how he celebrated. He deserved to do that. He's an emotional guy. But on that defensive side of the ball, Pat Beverley get it done. And that last guard spot, man, goes to, as the making of this video, they have announced already, Marcus Smart, Defensive Player of the Year, the heart and soul of that Boston Celtics team. Shot selection leaves a lot to be desired on offense, but on defense, he gets after it, man. That kid is tough. That kid is special. And that wraps up my all-defensive first team. On that all-defensive second team, we're going to start at the center spot with Bam Adebayo. Very deserving, anchoring one of the more elite defenses in the NBA. The Miami Heat were very stout, number one team in the East, top 5 defense. And it all started with Bam Adebayo anchoring that paint. At the forward spots, we're going to go with Greek Freak. We already know what he does on both sides of the ball. Easily could have had a case for first team, but for right now, we're going to settle on him being in the second team. That other forward spot, this may be unprecedented, and it may or may not happen, but a rookie on all defense. We going with Evan Mobley. That kid was special. Cleveland Cavaliers made their mark on defense this year. Jared Allen was very good, but if you watch those guys play, the crux of what they did all was on Evan Mobley. Long, defend the paint, quick enough, agile enough to get out and defend the pick and roll and guard smaller players. He was very special on that side of the ball, not even counting what he did on offense. And those guard spots on my All-NBA second team, we going with Drew Holiday, a mainstay. If you watch Drew, you already know what he does. And we going to go with Matisse Thybulle as that last spot. The guy, again, on Philadelphia, when your job is to go out and guard the other team's best player, night in, night out. That is his job. He does it extremely well, and he is very deserving. And that wraps up our All-NBA defensive teams. And that concludes NBA Season Recap Part 1. Make sure y'all check out Part 2 with a sports reporter without pay is going down all the awards. Coach of the Year, Most Improved Player, MVP, Rookie of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year. We doing it all in Part 2. Make sure y'all check it out. If you haven't already, like I said, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can be up to date when I drop the latest content. Until next time, it's your boy, Sports Reporter Without Pay.